Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's the Deal? And today we are going to be talking about student enrollment and student engagement. And we're also going to be talking about that student enrollment journey map. And I have a special guest that I'm going to be asking him, what's the deal with all those things? So stay tuned and let's go. So, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to another episode. I realize I'm not numbering these episodes, so I have to put a number on them. So, this is number question mark, and I'll have to go back into the archives and see what number we are on. I think the last episode that we did was last week. Excuse me. So, I definitely have to give it a number. And the last guest that we had on was week before with Kyle Jessup or Jepson from HubSpot Academy. And today I have a special guest on, and I'm going to be bringing him in. Excuse me, bringing him in here, and his name is Jarell Alder. Jarell, good morning, my friend. How are you doing?
Good morning, Lyndon. Good morning to everyone that's locked on. I am good, Lyndon. I'm happy to be alive. It's a Friday, and a happy Friday at that. And of course, I'm
Right,
happy to be on this program with you.
right. So, of course, in the Caribbean, we're always glad when it's a Friday because we know we have the whole weekend to do lime and palance and all those other little different things, right?
Absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're doing is that we are going to be discussing a very different topic today. We're actually going to be talking about student engagement and the student experience. And this particular topic, just want to give you guys some preface to this, is that the reason why I've decided to do this topic is because it's actually going to be a series of what I'm going to be focusing on during the course of this year, which is really putting an emphasis on how higher education institutions could actually improve in terms of differentiating themselves, but really looking at it from on the tail end, focusing a lot more on the students and that entire student journey. All right. And interestingly enough, I think it was either Friday or earlier this week, I had the conversation with Jarell because of something that he actually posted, and I think it actually meshed. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually give you guys an introduction into something that I've been working on and developing, and why I believe it's so important that organizations pay attention to this, right? So, what we're looking at here, folks, is something called the Student Enrollment Journey Map. And this is in the space of higher education institutions. Now, as you all will be familiar, that my area is sales enablement. So, one of my goals is to really focus on organizations, how they go about developing the right sales and or marketing strategies towards achieving those goals of enrolling their students. The challenge, however, has been, from my observations, is that most of what organizations or institutions are doing is that they are promoting more of their programs and not really targeting the students. And while there is a lot of demand because people have their own goals and that, objectives that they want to achieve in their lives, um, they get the ability to sort of pick and choose. And you have instances where, and if I have seen these things for myself, At one time, while I was pursuing my master's, even though I did not complete, I was part of that student enrollment journey. Excuse me. And I had many different options in front of me, but no one really engaged me in the right way to help me identify what I was actually trying to achieve. So this student enrollment journey map is one way it identifies, it encourages schools to not just pay attention to the programs that they want to promote and the associations that they would have with the Anglo-Ruskins and the UK institutions of this world, but really focus towards helping their targeted customers, which is their students, achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And if I had to break this down for you, a journey map goes like this. When a student, whether it's a mature student or it's a young student, whether they when they are looking at making that move towards higher education, they're doing it not just because the aspiration is to go to the school. They're doing it because they would like to get into a specific institution to achieve something, then to move forward. So that's the aspiration. But they go through a process of things like research, then they make comparisons, then of course they may reach out to the organization. They will submit the applications. It's either approved or not approved based upon maybe many different reasons. They go through the success of being enrolled. They spend a year, 2 years, 18 months based upon what is it that they're doing. And then, of course, they achieve it. But notice at the end, the achievement isn't just achieving their master's. That achievement is one step towards whatever they want to do, because having your master's or your degree moves you up the ladder to an extent, or it gets you closer to where you want to be in terms of career-wise. And that career-wise funds a lifestyle. It puts you on a path to whatever that is in your life. But as I say again, having a journey map like this is not always focused on, and by extension, the whole student experience is short. So that is where I felt having this gentleman on today is such a big thing, because Jarell, before I even get into that question, so I have the question to ask you. I would like for you to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago and everyone else that's watching a little bit of background behind you, where you are now, where it is that you actually came from, and why it is that you decided to look at student engagement.
Sure, and thanks again, Lyndon. So I like to describe myself as a student of life. I often say to persons when I have the opportunity that university changed my life, for the better. It really helped with me becoming and just self-development and identification of self. And so university did that for me. And so when I was given the opportunity to join higher education, my natural progression was to focus on the student experience, because again, I'm drawing from how the experience was beneficial to me, how the experience transformed my life in many different ways. And so at this present time in my professional life, I am focused on designing the student experience, designing student engagement strategies, and also being an activist for the disciplines that are student engagement and student experience. So that's where I'm at professionally now, in the higher ed space. Like I said, designing the student experience, looking at it from a holistic lens, and really just trying to help students that are coming in to get the most of the university experience. As you mentioned before, Linda, not just leaving with a degree, but really becoming the best versions of themselves, not to sound cliche, but really maximizing, that university experience. So that's
Right.
where I'm at
So
in my career as of now.
I really do appreciate you saying that, and I would want to maybe ask you, like, what's the deal with that? Like, what is it? So, like, what is that whole student engagement and student experience thing that you talk about? And then we'll talk about a little bit as to why is it important. So if you can just give us an idea as to what's the deal with student engagement and student experience.
Sure. So in defining student engagement, I think the first thing is to understand that it's multidimensional. Student engagement can look like many different things. I often use two very simple definitions. The first being student engagement, referring to how involved, how active, how invested students are in their learning. And the other side to that is how education leaders integrate students into that decision and governance process as it relates to satisfying their educational needs. So that's on the student engagement side. That could be further broken down into behavioral engagement, emotional engagement, and of course, cognitive engagement. So like I said, student engagement is a multidimensional concept. As it relates to student experience, we're now looking at the totality of the interactions a student have with a particular institution. So, what is their perception of that institution? What is the experience that they're having across the institution's touch points? And we're looking at, of course,
Mm,
both online and offline. So, that is my understanding of student engagement and student experience. And I mean, we're talking now about why it's this important
mm-hmm.
for institutions at this time. I think the demands of higher ed providers are different. It has changed. Students are now seeking not just degrees, but they want to enter into memorable learning partnerships. And
Mm,
so I think, institutions in higher ed definitely have a responsibility there to redefine, I guess, in some instances, what that product is that they're offering to students so
right.
that it's a win-win situation for both parties, the institution and students.
Yeah. So I do connect with what you're saying there, Jarell, because again, I've actually seen the changes within the generations, right? Um, Especially now where students, I think their ambitions are bigger than mine, and what they're looking for in terms of demand of what they're looking for from organizations, it's a little bit different. Again, it's not just a matter of coming to a school to say,
Yeah,
well, for me back in the day, it was school, education, get the thing and go to work. But now it's different for the students now, and you say that their demands are different. What would you think are some of the things that this generation, let's say from yours or your and younger, might be looking for right now from schools? Like, what are their expectations that they may be looking for as needs from organizations?
I think that persons have moved beyond just wanting certification. Persons are now into skill development. Persons want to be prepared for the workforce. Persons want to be prepared to operate, I guess, efficiently as global citizens. And of course, that's a very loaded kind of statement, and we can dissect that a lot more. So I think before, where persons were just interested in getting certification to attain a job, persons are now looking for an avenue or looking for the opportunity from institutions, educational institutions, to engage in lifelong learning, to
Mm-hmm.
empower them to discover, to become, to explore. I mean, we have so many instances of persons going to universities, attaining degrees, and deciding that, what, I want a redirection in my life. So I may have studied accounting, but after university, I realized that, what, I want to do something else, and that something else may not be in the confines of the educational structure, but it is
Mm-hmm.
certainly still a viable career. So I think that persons, to answer the question, are looking to institutions for diversity in opportunities. Persons are looking for guidance on how to become an effective global citizen, how to contribute to their societies, how to pursue their interests and passions, and of course, that extends beyond the classroom. So we're looking now at lifelong learning.
Right. And again, you said something at the beginning there where it spoke about skills.
Yes,
You know, um, this is not to take away from any other thing along the lines of HR and this and that the thing, because those things are skills within itself. But I have also seen a shift where folks are now looking for different types of skills in terms of
absolutely.
whether it may be in the space of media, I guess, especially now with the abundance of the availability of technology, people's creativity is exploding, you know.
Yes,
And again, they may be looking for institutions to give them a little bit more than just the standard things that puts them into a traditional workforce,
absolutely.
you
Yes.
know.
Persons want to
So
feel empowered, if I could say
mhm,
that. And I
yeah.
mean, we want to be empowered to be the best versions of ourselves,
Hmm.
understanding we all have different interests, we all have different skill sets, different passions, different competencies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think higher ed institutions is that place to discover, that place to hone also those skills and really to look to the future and for
Mm-hmm.
us to, of course, become co-producers of our educational aspirations.
Mm-hmm. So with saying that, so let me give you from my example as to, so from through my lens now, from my role in terms of the things that I do with organizations. One of the areas that I see now as being a shift is that what you are saying is really and truly now the institutions need to really not truly now shift how they engage with those students at the different stages. Because if I look at the journey map again,
Mhm.
someone doesn't just wake up and say, well, this is what I want to be. But if you were indicating to, because you spoke about being a global citizen, and they may be developing these aspirations pretty early, so it means, to be honest, that an organization, an institution, a higher education institution, really now needs to start directing folks as to what the possibilities are. Would am I correct or wrong in saying that?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a right or a wrong, but I will say that I agree with your perspective, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think persons are looking for a partnership. This is what I want, this is what the institution has to offer, and how can we now find that happy intersection? I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's what persons are looking for.
Right.
Opportunities that are unconventional, opportunities that allows them to thrive in the 21st century. So these are the things that persons are looking at, and I think it's very important, as I mentioned earlier, to diversify the offerings as higher ed institutions, because we understand that the persons that are coming to us, when we look at it from a sales perspective, the persons, our customers here, being students, they are coming to us for different things. And so we have to ensure that our offerings are diverse enough to satisfy those needs. And I think that once we do that and we understand that customer centricity is the single most important sustainable model for business growth, then I think that we are, and of course, this is within the context of education as a business, I think that we are well on our way to forging memorable and healthy partnerships with students if we start thinking of them as customers and our responsibility to respond effectively to their needs.
Right. So here's another angle to the conversation as well, right? So let's talk a little bit about that student experience, because the student experience starts when, I would like to see, when the student is looking. So
Absolutely.
the child wants to be X, so they start searching for information.
Yeah.
And one of the things that one of the messages I've really been trying to share with different institutions is, like, what I see is everybody doing the same thing to an extent.
Mhm.
Everyone is, whether it's through their Facebook, their social platforms, and even on their website, it's just a placeholder for a place that you could choose a program from. However, what I am not seeing is really how they begin to now educate the students as to what the possibilities are. Meaning,
Right.
if I am interested in this particular career and I come to your website, Jarell, you're the institution, I would like to think that your website should be able to, your institution's website should be able to give me an idea as to, this course can actually give me opportunities in these particular careers.
Yes.
But most of what I see is just, well, this is the program, and, well, call in for something else. And I think that that is a shortcoming as it relates to the experience, because you're not nurturing or educating me as to what does this course at this price give me in the in
Yeah.
the in the long term.
Yes.
So again, from a student experience standpoint, even from on the aspiration and the research stage in the student journey map,
Mhm.
my I would always say my suggestion to institutions have always been just the approach in terms of how you begin sharing or promoting that information to start capturing the eyes or the minds of the students should really be. Now, it would mean that a lot of people have to shift, especially marketing teams would have to shift what they do now,
Right.
right? But then again, what you are doing, as you spoke about the customer centricity, is that you are now um, speaking to the needs and the aspirations of not what your institution is offering, but what your customers are
Yes.
trying to achieve. Yeah.
Yes.
What are your
And
thoughts as it relates to that?
I mean, I totally agree, Lyndon, and I think we also have to consider the environment becoming increasingly competitive. I think there was
Mm,
a time when institutions were considered safe. Like, you know what, persons are always going to be interested in education and my offerings as an institution, so I'm safe.
yes.
But I mean, I think with the disruptions in the educational environment, we have recognized that no, we have to always be on our A game. We have to always ensure that we are responding, we are listening, and that we are approaching it with this built-in empathy kind of concept. So I agree with all of your points. I think that it's important. There's value in institutions shifting from that inside out perspective to now the outside in. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that is um, dedicating some time to understanding, okay, this is who we're serving and this is what they require. And so now let's look within and see what adjustments we have to make to ensure that the partnership, and again, I'll use that term, the
Right.
partnership that we are offering is one that creates value for all of the parties involved.
Right. And I like how you use the word partnership. And this, I think, this is the second or third time you've said it. So I know that you're drumming it in there. So here's another question I want to ask you, because you spoke about that student engagement and student experience framework that you've been working on, or that you're putting together to help institutions. Give us an idea as to what that looks like. Where does that start? What would be step one that you will start looking at to help institutions make that change? How does that look?
Right. So I am a design thinking professional, I'd like to call myself.
Right.
So, design thinking, for persons that may not be familiar with that concept, is a human centered approach to problem solving.
Mm,
That's nicely put, right? And so that cycle entails or starts with empathy, and I would have referenced built-in empathy. So I think once we start from a place of empathy, and in this context, we're talking now about um, taking time to understand needs of
mm,
those that we're serving. So I think that that's a good place to start. Once we do that, we are then now able to define what the needs are. And once we shift from this defining, we're now going into that stage of ideating. So we are exploring, we are coming up with many different possibilities. And,
mm,
this is not the time to break down ideas, but rather to build them up.
right.
And once ideation is done, we then prototype and then we test where possible. So I think for institutions to get started, I will highly recommend an engagement in that design thinking process. And once that is done, we are now looking at different strategies. So if we agree that this is a partnership that we're entering into, and that students are co-producers of their educational experience, then we begin to create different pathways to engage even more and understand what they need and help them to design um,
Mm,
what they want, is essentially. So design thinking, definitely a strategy. We're looking at, in some instances, students becoming co-authors of curriculum, if that
right.
is possible. I mean, every institution would be different. Um, I think as institutions would plan out their strategic goals, the student experience definitely should be prioritized on that list also, and not be considered an afterthought, so to speak, but prioritize the student experience as part of strategic planning and one of the strategic goals also. And of course, this can filter down into so many different things, but I think it's
Hmm.
certainly a good place for institutions to start.
Yeah. So just let me highlight a point that J.A. Modest is making. He is saying is true. Customers' needs are essential. The market needs to be diverse, more menus. So
No menus. Yes, I like that. That is put.
yeah, I like how you put that there, J.A. Modest. So based upon what you said, that co-authoring to me is a big thing, right? Because again, I am not part of any student board, so and every institution has their business model, and their revenue targets and stuff like that. But when you talk about things like co-authoring, it means that now you're really saying, you know what, as an institution, we really need to maybe reach out more to see exactly as to where most of our potential students would like to go, and we need to see if we have anything in our bag, or as JA said, on our menu
on our menu.
to offer to these
Yes,
people.
yes,
Because again, if and I'll stick with the menu thing, if the tastes of your potential customers is changing, then is it that you say, well, no, we only do Chinese food, we don't do nothing else? If you understand where I'm coming from,
right.
and that may eventually cost you in the long run as an
Agree.
institution.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
So I do like the aspect of the co-authoring in terms of taking that approach. But I also see that it could drastically change the change the curriculum, or maybe even the business model of an institution. I mean, because if you realize that people are now leaning in this particular direction, then you may have to, again, whatever that structure is, it may shift to an
yeah,
extent. And this is not something for you to answer. It's just me thinking,
right.
based upon what you said there, as to whether. So, what would the because I don't want to drift. I know because that for me is an engagement component, right?
Yes.
In terms of
I just wanted to add one
sure,
point and then before you move on,
sure.
because you raise a very valid point, and that is about a shift, and I don't think that that's something to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ideal is really arriving at that happy intersection, and that happy intersection is between the needs of our customers, students in this case, and the needs of and the goals of the institution, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really just finding that happy medium.
All right. So what I'll do, guys, I'm going to take a little bit of a pause here, just to reemphasize something that I started with earlier, right? Because a lot of what Jarell has mentioned there speaks of schools really now paying attention to what the profiles, what is in the minds of those students, because of course parents are funding it more than likely, and they're saying, okay, tell me what is it that you want to do. I think they have a lot more liberal minded parents now who are very open and not just directing their children, but now saying, tell me what is it that you want to do, and let's see if there's something out there. So you really have two components that you're playing with: one, the budget holder, and to
Mhm.
an extent the final decision maker, and then of course the end user, the recipient of this knowledge, or
Yes.
that you are actually going to be um, nurturing through the 2 years or 18 months or however long it is,
Yes.
right? Um, so I am seeing that where if it is that we were to, and I'll just bring this up here briefly again, Jarell, if we were to pay attention to the student enrollment journey map,
Hmm.
once an institution, through engagement in this first thing here, by understanding the aspirations of the individuals, and you know exactly what is it that people, you're seeing a trend in terms of where the needs are, you begin shifting your programs. And of course, now you start marketing in a different way, or you start
Yes.
bringing your stuff forward to now capture the minds of these individuals. So you're
Yes.
really looking at the research, and also those things can help you become a differentiator. Because when a student, whether it's parent or mature student or otherwise, when they realize that, wait a minute, I am seeing something in these institutions as opposed to the others,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about differentiating or competing, because you're standing out in your own comparisons. Because like the orange house here,
Hmm.
it's a little bit higher, even though I know the blue means it's just a little bit heavier, right? But at
Right.
the end, when it comes to comparison, your what you are offering is different based upon the new thinking of this particular generation, however long that thinking might last. Am I
Yeah.
correct in saying that?
Yes, I agree with you. I think the narrative that we often see is that from higher ed institutions is that of premiership, and of course that has its place. But I think if we are really zeroing in on the needs of those students that we're trying to attract, those students that we're trying to engage, we have to adopt a more value focused kind of lens, I will say, as opposed to pushing a narrative of premiership. the narrative I'm thinking that we should consider is that of value. We remain value focused. If you join our
Mhm.
institution, this is the value that we can create for your life. I think that that's a really good way to also approach it as an institution.
Yeah, I would agree with you um, there as well. And as I say, just looking at just taking notes of the things that we would have discussed. And this is not a condemnation to say that institutions aren't thinking like this,
Yeah.
but the only way that I judge that is based upon my observations, because as I say, I study the industries both locally and regionally. I see some of them that are doing certain things that, okay, I definitely see where this is actually going to go once they're consistent in terms of doing it, as
Yes.
opposed to there are others who are just kind of sort of doing the same thing, relying on the name,
Yeah.
relying on the how long they've been around or who they've been affiliated with,
Yeah.
but not doing certain things to really stand out to say, okay, if you want to go in this direction career wise, these are the things that you need. This is what this is actually going to get you. So if you do have a master's or a degree in British Anglo Ruskin, whatever, just using a name,
Yes.
um, your possibilities of career will be these six careers. And
Yes.
out of these six careers, these are the salaries or the salary projections that's going in that. So again, you're really educating folks as to
Yes.
career. So you're looking at program, career, job, income, and then of course the income facilitates the lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes, and I also see engagement and experience as we're talking here, working together. And like I said,
Mm-hmm.
once we have that built-in empathy approach, once we consider student experience as a strategic goal as an
Mm-hmm.
institution, I think we're well on our way. I like to dissect student experience. So we have the enrollment map, that enrollment journey, which is so very, very important. And I think um, Lyndon, you did an excellent job with illustrating that.
Thank you.
So that's one. I like to dissect the student experience. So we have the student enrollment journey, and then we have student life cycle. All right. And so in dissecting the student experience, we're now looking at okay, let me just tap back a little bit. If we're saying that the student experience is the totality of interactions that a student will have with our institution across various touch points, then we are in a better position to start dissecting what that student experience, what those components are. So we're looking at the application experience, and of course, there are several factors in there. We are looking at the enrollment experience, the registration experience. We're looking at the transition. If you're a new student, we're looking at that transition experience. We're looking at the campus integration experience as well, the academic experience, equally important here. And of course, lastly, that graduate to graduate experience. So I think that once we start looking at it from a strategic lens and with a holistic view, I think institutions are well on their way to creating more value, elevating presence, and really delivering on student satisfaction, which I think is ultimately one of the goals as a
All
higher
right.
ed institution.
So I just want to ask you, you spoke about student life cycle. If you could
Mhm.
just give us an idea as to what does that mean in the higher education space of
In that
things?
space,
Yeah.
well, my understanding of the student life cycle, much like the enrollment journey map, we're looking at the student journey from their first interaction with the institution up until they leave the institution. So we're looking at it from different phases, right? So we have that discovery phase where, as you have the enrollment journey here, persons are looking, persons are researching, persons are conducting assessments when necessary. So we have that phase of discovery. From that, we may then decide that we're going to make a decision to register and engage in that enrollment process. So that's another
Mm.
phase. Once you enroll as a new student, then there's that phase to transition to university life. So that's another phase of the cycle there. Once you transition and you, I guess, start getting acclimatized, then there is of course, this is all underpinned by the academic experience, right? You start now getting into the habit of going to classes, and then there's this integration into the school or class attending side of things, and then of course all of the other things that the university community may have to offer. And so once that is done, and of course you're doing well, and the institution is delivering on student satisfaction, then students get to that stage of where they become a graduate, of course, before
Mm,
they graduate. So I see student engagement linked to student retention, linked to student experience management. And like I said, it all really starts with empathy. I recommend highly that design thinking process, and considering student experience, student engagement, all of the things that come with that as part of strategic planning for an institution and not just an afterthought. So we're looking now at all of the resources, all of the opportunities within the university community. What can the institution offer? So we have these wonderful programs. We have a world-class curriculum. But because this is a partnership, we understand that you have varying needs that extend beyond the classroom. And so this is the value that we're going to create for you. These are the things in place. So Linda, and I just can't stress enough, the importance of us really just looking at it from that point. And of course, considering that customer centricity is a very, very, very vital part of any business model. So when we start to think of education as business, then of course our customers and satisfaction
mm.
is ultimately what we want to strive for.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you said that. You're saying a lot of things that I don't have to say anymore, because it really does come down to yes, it is a business, but again, you're focusing on exactly what we need to do properly to engage our potential students or customers even before. So even while it's in their head, we want to start engaging with them early. And J.A. Modest put up something here again. Let's just have a read of it. He said, if the institution do assessments as to what the national and international needs are, once the market creates such, you'll get more students and or customers and be diverse even enrollment level. And correct, yeah, you will stand out. You will have demand. As I say, one of the things that I've seen a few institutions experience is that they already have demand. Like it's
Of
not
course.
because, well, the name of the institution is this big thing. Yes, the name has a big part to play in terms of when someone requests information or signs up for something. But what happens is that you have a lot of demand, but you sometimes have to fight for that conversion. And
Yes, of course.
what I try, because sometimes people may apply to more than one school. Yeah. So your application is not the only application that they're submitting, because they may be submitting to, and it's who comes first, or if it applied to two schools, was your school the main preference or you the backup? You know,
Right.
and excuse me, it really does come down to, as you've said, I lost count of how many times you've used these two words, partnership and value. You know,
Yes.
how are you applying the value even before and then when they do begin engaging? And how are you showcasing what that experience is like? Because you did mention it's a, it's hard to it's easy it's hard to tell experience. A lot of times, oh, we have the best this and we have the best that and whatever it is,
Yes.
but actually showcasing through your postgraduates or your alumni that, okay, this is what the experience of coming here is like, and that experience
Yes.
goes into what people achieve after they've left your school 3 or 4 or 5 years after. But they know
Yes.
it started off, as you said in the beginning, it started off here. It started
Yes.
off at this institution, and this institution kickstarted my journey for me to achieve this.
Yes.
And it's all about celebrating what where those people would have reached. It's, if you understand, it's like,
Absolutely.
um sometimes I haven't seen this in a while, but sometimes primary schools or secondary schools used to celebrate the national footballers, you know
Yes.
and that is just, hey, you came from our school and look at where you are. And those things would have been things to help inspire additional potential people to say, okay, you come into the school, this is what you could actually expect. And I strongly believe that, again, the approach to how you showcase and market those things, or even package and sell them, is important, because you're really showcasing your student experience and where that you are focused on getting people to where they aspire to be.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you want to add anything, because I think I just wanted to do one more thing before we tie
Sure.
up.
I wanted to add that, students have different needs, and I think it's important to recognize that and not consider each student as the same or treat each student as the same. That's one. I also think that institutions should really, as part of their strategic planning, strive for that design and creation of an ecosystem where all of the various functions within the university contributes to this student engagement mission and this positive student experience mission, so that we don't have just one section working on student experience, but we have a built-in kind of experience model, a built-in empathy model, so that the experience in itself for the student is really holistic and that it's consistent as well. So I think thinking of it as an ecosystem. So we have academia, we have the support services, we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the opportunities. Really pooling all of those things together with student experience and that student first
Hmm.
being at the heart of our processes and our policies and our offerings. And I think once institutions really start or continue to consider that, then we'll see the results. We'll see the results.
Yeah, Jarell, I totally agree with you, and I would actually use that as our closing note, folks. And Jarell, I just want to say thank you so much for just agreeing to be part of this, because again,
Mhm.
I do believe, for me it's a big thing, and I know that we connected when we shared our passion about, just really helping this particular industry just grow and do better. you
Yes.
know if I had to ask, where can people follow you, like what platforms? That's up, I mean, so I know that there's LinkedIn, but where, if you just let folks know where they can follow you and get more information and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thanks again, Linda, and just for the opportunity to share. I'm really honored. Every time I have the opportunity to share, I'm happy to do that. So I am definitely on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to grow my community there, my network
Mm,
there on LinkedIn. I am also on Facebook, on Instagram, but not much time there. But you can
right.
certainly find me on LinkedIn and Facebook under my name, and that's Jarell Alder.
Cool. So, Jarell, thank you very much. J.A. Modest, thank you for your contributions, my friend. I really like that menu thing, but I didn't want to beat the point too much, because I had a few ideas in my head as to what are other things I could have been saying along those lines. But for you just joining in and giving a contribution, I want to say thank you. And for everyone that's going to be looking at this later on, this stream is actually going to be, of course, on LinkedIn. Is going to be on LinkedIn for however long. It's also on YouTube, so if you want to check it out, you can check out Opatsway's YouTube channel there. And of course, there's also another stream on Facebook for folks who do see it on Facebook as well. So, folks, it's Friday. As we started off, we said TGIF, and we
Yes.
just did what's the deal with student engagement and student experience. We had a really good conversation with Jarell Alder. Jarell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a really great Friday. Take care. And as I always say, peace.